I know that what you're looking at right now is going to be quite a change from the normal videos that we do, but I felt so compelled to do this because whenever I see a relationship from two different technologies with the same design theory and practice, I love to point that out, because what I try to do is get you guys to think about the ports in the head, what it's doing. And since I've never covered some of the more intricate valve spring design in the cam train, we're going to get away from ports in a minute. And I know you're sitting there saying, well, golly, what am I looking at here? We're looking at, yes, Raymond, this is your BBC 345cc Whomper 2300 intake valve, and your double, actually triple spring, because what most people don't realize is a dampener is, of course, is a spring. And we're going to compare your setup and your big heavy valve and triple spring to the new Generation 4 Glock 20 10mm pistol. My father, Thomas Perry, who's 38 years, Tennessee Air National Guard, had the honor many years ago to meet, I believe his name was Jeff Cooper, a lieutenant, or a colonel, who developed the awesome 10mm round. Now, anybody that knows anything about the 10mm stuff can tell you that, I'll just go ahead and make the statement, and I know there's going to be some people hee-haw and argue around, but there is absolutely, it has to be the most powerful automatic production pistol ever made. If you look at the ballistics of the 10mm round and you compare it to you wouldn't even want to compare it to a 9mm. That'd be like throwing stones. But if you want to compare it to something like a 45 ACP, basically what you're looking at, this is a 155 grain Underwood round. I love Underwood ammo. And what it uses is the 10mm round usually hits around 1,550 feet per second with around 800 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. With the same grain weight, that kicks a 357 Magnum in the hind end by about 100 foot per second. Problem has always been that when Mr. Cooper developed the round, if it gets me right, it was done so because of the Miami shootout where the FBI, some officers lost their lives because they were using 38 special rounds of 9mm, which everybody knows, hell, they'll bounce off glass windshields. But they made this right here. The FBI did a paper on it I found recently, and they love the 10mm round. But the problem was recoil, and a lot of companies tried to make the round with not a success in their guns, but Glock has really stuck with it. Glock's latest model, their Gen 4 G20, they done a lot of work on it, but still suffers from some problems, and it's all in the recoil department. Well, my father, Tom Perry, he's 70, in his late 70s, I do believe, and recoil's a problem with him. He ain't got quite the grip he used to, but he loves the gun because he met Mr. Cooper. And he purchased this, and after firing a few rounds through it, he decided, he asked me to see if there's anything they could do to lighten the recoil up on it. And I did my research and was turned on to this company called DPM. And when I saw the design of the DPM, boom, the camera, the lights went on, and I was like, wow, it's using triple spring technology, which is what we use in our cylinder heads in automotive, to calm down what's known as valve bounce. All right, now let's go ahead just a minute. Let's disassemble the gun and take a look at what we got. Okay, let's go ahead and let's field strip this thing a little bit, which y'all know. Let's go ahead and get the ammo out of the way and the magazine. All right, now we'll go ahead and do the disassembly. That's a little rough getting apart. That's another thing we'll point out about the Gen 4 Mater. Everybody knows about that damn little dot that rubs the frame. But anyway, they upgraded it by going to a double spring, which is this deal here. But it's a flimsy son of a gun. You can actually see it bend. It's polymer. really it's junk. It's, to my opinion, the flaw on the gun. So anyway, from what I understand, on the Generation 3, they had a single spring design, and you could increase springs. I believe it's 17 pounds from the factory, and then you could order from companies like Lenny McGill's Glock store or Lone Wolf. You could get a big 22, 24-pound spring. The problem is with that spring, it's just the one single. There's drawbacks to that, mainly in what's called overshoot on the gun. There's your recoil. Then when it slams the slide so hard, it throws forward, making a harder to keep your shot on target. So anyway, I got to looking at this thing, and let me back up a little bit. Here our package came, and what we got here when we open it up, spill the contents out, is a ring that replaces what the Gen 3 used to have, a lot smaller hole in the front which captured the spring, and all it does is slide right in there and encases it so that the smaller shaft can be used. We lay that out, and we got two different springs, two different windings, that and your piece. Now, here's what makes this so interesting that got my eye. Inside this shaft right here, let me see if we can zoom in, is a spring and a spring. Here's the shaft. What you can't see here is, you see this spring here, that's the second spring. It depresses, and right around here there's a third inner spring. And then of course you got this spring, this slides on around it. Versus just two in this setup right here. Now, the trick to this isn't enormous pressure, it's progressive. Okay, now let's zoom over here for a minute and look at valve springs on a V8 engine. Here's a big whopper valve. This is a big block Chevrolet 2300 intake valve for the assault head. This is going to have a roller camshaft with around 680 lift, I do believe. I'll have to look, make sure, but here's our spring. This is a 16250 outer. This is our inner dampener recoil spring. And then third, notice that the rates of the spring, they're actually close to the same windings, but this right here will usually go in opposite direction. It has to do with what's called spring oscillation. What we're not wanting on an automotive head is what's called valve bounce. Now, I've got a cutaway here. I don't know if I can show you this with it. Let's see what we can do. Is a cutaway of the Allen Johnson cylinder head. This is an older top fuel head from a few years back. And I've done quite a few of these for some guys running top alcohol in the boats. Let's say this is the valve, all right? Now, the guide, of course, is gone, and we'd have a seat here, but this is just for illustration purposes. When the spring is on top, if we just use a single, and as it lifts, lets the air and fuel in and slams back, okay? With a single, what you can get with a lot of pressure is this business here. Instead of coming and sealing, it hits and goes boom, bam, it'll bounce. So we put a dampener in there to try to control it. Here's our single spring, here's our dampener. We put it in there as a method of control. Does it help? Yeah, a little bit, but it still has the pulse to hit. It has probably calmed it around 20%. But now let's slide the triple in there with the dampener. And then what we got is ultimate control. As the cam hits the lifter and it pulls it off its seat, it starts to go off, then it hits, it keeps it from bouncing, and it will stay locked. Boom, the burn process begins and the piston moves downward. Okay, here's where the relationship of having a progressive spring and what caught my eye with the DPM system and its spring setup. It's called progressive control. Okay? Obviously, when the valve first lifts off the seat, you don't want a ton of pressure on it. You want pressure to increase as the valve gets to its max lift point. Now, as the lobe of the cam starts to go the other direction and release it, you don't want this thing to slam with the full force back, or it would bounce. It'd go boom, ba boom, ba boom. So by having the third spring and a progressive system, it slows the valve down. It won't let it have all that pressure at the very end that it had as it touches the seat. Man, the same thing is going on right here, and I mean to tell you, it's just ingenious. It just knocks me to the ground. Why hasn't somebody thought of this 30 or 40 years ago? I'll never know. But anyway, it is the same theory. As you want the pressure to increase to keep the lobe following the lifter, so that as it gets higher, you got the pressure. So when the valve comes back at full speed, you want to slow the valve down. You don't want to hit it super fast with the force. You want to slow it down, but yet have enough pressure to where when the valve hits the seat, it stays shut. Now, from my understanding, what's happening here, now we look at oscillation and the cylinder head. Let's put the copy of the head to the side. From my understanding, what's happening here with the Glock and the DPM system is that when the DPM system is engaged, it's in the gun, and it's working, we get this business. Let me assemble it partially back. You get this thing, here goes the recoil. You pull the trigger, it fires, the gun goes up, comes up at an angle. Now, if you have a spring, it's got all this pressure, it's going to yank this at full force. It starts to come down, and here's the problem. When that slide shuts, it's going to shut with such force that it pulls the barrel down. Then back up before you can line the sights up to make your shot. Okay, by the DPM system using a progressive spring like our valve and drag race spring in the cylinder head, then what we're going to have is a much easier cushion. Once it fires, boom, you pull it, the slide comes back, and it's got 26 to 28 pounds right at the very end. As it starts to come back, like the valve in the head, it's going to slowly bring the gun back to balance and keep it straight, enabling you to fire and get the second shot off. I was just amazed when I saw it at how similar that the problems are to a triple valve spring and a valve and this business right here on a gun. Whereas the gun DPM triple spring system is trying to control recoil so that when it kicks, it brings it level instead of having one big single spring or even a double that's going to have so much pressure that when the gun kicks back, it slides and has this dramatic overhang. Boom, boom. There's time in milliseconds that are saved with this business. Boom, straight, and no overhang. There is no other system on the market for a gun, and I've investigated this trying to help my father so that he can shoot his gun without this business of, so much recoil that he can't control it. But I'll have you know that my father went out there, 75-plus-year-old man, and he's able to hold on to a 10 millimeter using the Underwood ammo and shoot this gun. And in comparison, it feels about like a .40 caliber now. I shot the gun myself a couple of times and I played with it. I can't believe it. What I'm here to tell you is there are very few times in life, and we all know, especially in automotive cylinder head, that you get what you pay for. And DPM, you have absolutely made a true product. It had to have knocked at least a third of the recoil out of this gun. Now, the only problem I was having is even though it tamed the recoil on the gun, it still could use some more pressure. So I made a phone call to the gentleman in Greece. I believe his name is Demetrius. And one thing I got to say is, DPM, you have the best customer support I have ever seen in my life on any type of firearm. I emailed at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 10 or 11 a.m. they already emailed me. The engineer who designed this or was involved in the development, Demetrius, come and called me all the way from Greece, because it wasn't that I was having a problem. It's just that with the hard ammunition, I was getting a shell ejection of 12 to 18 feet. I believe recommended on the Glock is 5 to 7 feet. Now, when the shells come out, there was no damage to the shell casing itself, but having it eject that far tells you that it's still a little bit much pressure. What I didn't know is that DPM now makes a 10 millimeter heavy duty kit for people using the heavy 10 millimeter ammunition. And it's not just the outer spring, it's the inner, and this secondary spring has more compression in there, because what we're wanting is at the end. The only reason I was even interested is because of what it does with taking care of the frame. No, I don't think you're going to be able to see this because of my camcorder, but everybody that knows about a Glock knows one thing. On the 10 millimeters, this right here is your area that can be damaged. That's where the frame hits and smacks. I took a machinist blue dye and put right here and here, and you just can't see it with the camcorder, but I took the blue machinist dye. Let me get you a picture of this. This is a cylinder head machinist dye. Comes with a little swab, and of course it'll turn green or blue. And what I done was I took that swab and I colored it blue dicom right here and went around right here, put the gun back together and use the regular spring, and the frame would come back so hard that the majority of the machinist die was hit. Where it's hit with the slide is it comes back. So I took it back apart, put the blue dicom on it again, in that area right there, and used the DPM triple spring system, and it hardly even barely left a mark of the blue dye. Now that is 100% positive proof, beyond shadow of a doubt, that this DPM system is saving the plastic frame on the Glock gun. It is hands down, if you have a Glock, you really have got to have one of these systems. So the only problem left I was having with it is it was still leaving a little bit of an impression, not much, until I talked to Dimitri, and he has already sent me, they do make a heavy duty version of this kit for the DPM, so that it'll allow you to shoot the heavy Underwood buffalo bore double tap loads. Of course, my favorite that my father likes to shoot the most, he likes the hard stuff. He likes the Underwood. Underwood, you make the best ammo out there. You give us more of it. My hat's off to you guys. At least with y'all, we get 50 shots where everybody else is giving us 20, and that 1,600 feet per second deal is a bad boy. So you can shoot to your heart's content with this and never have to worry about hurting your frame. Actually, felt recoil. Here's what, to me, it felt like. Before, when I would shoot it, It felt like a 357 Magnum's recoil, real close to it with the addition of a slide. By installing the DPM system, it knocked it down where it feels about like a 9mm in a plus P or a 40 caliber type plus P deal. It took that much power away. So we're going to get back to this. This is part one. And Demetrius has sent us from DPM in Greece. He has sent us the heavy duty kit and spring. So what we're going to do, we're going to get it, and then we're going to get some live fire. My father's going to actually come out here and shoot the gun. And guess what? For you Walther fans, my father owns a Walther P99, and we're going to try it in that because we want to use the Walther and plus P ammunition, or in the 40 Smith & Wesson, and we're in the same situation because the Walther has a plastic part bottom of the frame. So we're going to try the heavy duty version in it. So we're going to do a comparison, Glock and Walther, standard versus heavy duty versus the spring, and we're going to have some real world numbers for you here, but mainly two areas DPM has excelled. They made a damn product that worked beyond what they said it would. It tamed the gun. And number two, their customer service is absolutely off the chart. Demetrius Mantris, I believe how you pronounce his name in Greece, called me that day. Hey, what can I do to help you? Do you need some heavier springs? What is the problem? Or what are you not happy with? And I'm like, well, sir, it ain't that I'm having a problem. It's just that I believe a little more spring pressure. Do you offer an outer? He's not just sending an outer. He's sending one revised that come to find out it was heavy duty. Now, if you people know of anybody that's doing customer service that quick, that generous, trying to help you, let me know. But a sound product, $80 or $90 investment on your gun, in my opinion, with the DPM system installed on the Glock 20, you've got the most powerful semi-automatic handgun that the world has ever seen. It's like a 357 Magnum and an automatic with half the recoil. All right, let's go ahead. I hope y'all understand the relationship. Valve bounce, slide to frame bounce. Double spring, triple spring. Triple spring is better. Both of these are progressive systems. There's a big 200 grain bullet slinging, but a 300 valve diameter. It is an identical concept. And I just, usually I don't do anything with guns, and it's not really what I do. I'm a cylinder head guy. But this is just one of them things that is just so awesome in its engineering that it works. And I saw a relationship between springs on the cylinder head and springs on that. I just had to show my followers. I hope this helps y'all. To the gun owners that subscribe to my channel, if you have a semi-automatic pistol, call DPM and see if they make this system for you, for your gun. I will guarantee you it'll be the best $80 investment you have ever made, and you will really like your weapon. Thanks, DPM. And all right, back to the automotive cylinder head stuff. We will conclude this with a part two when we get the heavy duty kit back and take a look at the difference in it.